so it's a week from when we cut up our parts for our first banjo pot out of that log, and they're not checking out okay yet with the moisture meter, which is fine. They're going to take a little more time, but I do have 5 glue ups that are ready for machining. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to walk you through the process. We're going to go from a glue up like this and machine it on the Bridgeport and the rotary table to a nice finished banjo pot like this one here. So I'm going to pull the camera right here, and I'm going to walk you through the process a little bit before we ever get out to the shop. Alright, now I'm going to do the best I can with explaining as much as I can in the shortest amount of time, but because everybody's got such a short attention span now, they don't want to watch anything longer than 30 seconds. So yeah, today's going to be like cramming 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound sack, but bear with me. So the cutters I use, this is the main cutter I use for cutting out the inner and outer profile of my pots. 3/4 inch, 2 flute, just a standard A2, you know, high-speed cutter. It's razor sharp, and you can buy them for 25 bucks on Amazon. They're pretty easy to come by. So when I mill these out, I start with my miller right here, and I step mill it down. I don't try to go crazy and take this a huge honking ass cut, because it ain't gonna benefit anybody. You know, you try to rush it and it'll fuck right off on you. So so I do step milling. I'll step it down about 3/8 of an inch each time, and this thing will be taking out some nice chips out of the vacuum. I pull the chips out. If you let this pack up with chips, which is bad, so you have this whole bowl, it'll be full of chips, and those chips will go back in the cutter, and they'll be in the fucking way when this thing's trying to make a cut, and it'll end up just wrecking it as well. So you got to keep your chips clear when you're cutting this. And so I'll cut my inner out, and then I've got a whole fucking elaborate setup on this thing. So cut your inner out, and then I'll have a plate that aligns the inner, and I'll have a Jesus pin. We'll talk about him later. And so everything gets lined up and gets centered, and then we cut the outside of this thing out. And same thing in steps. We'll step it down. We're going to be removing a lot of wood today. We're probably going to make 30 gallons worth of chips in these 5 pots. And then flip it over. And as we're doing this, we decide where we want our neck to come out of this thing. We'll look at the pot and see what we want to show on either side. We decide where we want our tailpiece to come out. We decide where we want our neck to come out. So it's all undecided. I just kind of do it as I go. So we're going to flip it over, and we'll mill out the ball mill I made. We'll mill out the lower right here. So here's a cutaway, well, a breakaway, because this pot didn't make it. Not everything I make, survives. So this will cut out that profile in steps. We'll step it in gradually, and it's going to be fun. And it's going to be kind of a teaser video right now. I'm going to show you guys what we will be doing eventually too, and going over. I've been making plywood in my shop, and we'll be going over how to make a plywood neck. And then we'll go into banjo setup and neck layout. It's really pretty. And we'll go into making resonator backs. And some of them get kind of exotic. So we are going to turn those 5 glue ups we saw into pots today. And we'll meet you back up out in the shop. Alright, so we're back out in the shop. Let me turn this guy off here. So each one of the pots, they get faced off. Make sure this is nice and flat. This is on my Prentice Brothers 1890 lathe. It's old and it works fantastic. Now I'm going to go over the jig real quick. This is the jig we're going to be using. That is the rotary table on the Bridgeport. So, and this is the jig we're going to use. And I call it the bullseye jig because it's fucking clever. So we're going to start with the bowl ring to start. This is the bowl. This is what's going to cut her in or out. Alright? And this right here, this is the Jesus pin. And it's got a little point which we're going to measure off of here when we start with the mill. And that's going to set the origin for all our measurements we're going to do today. And then once we get our central hole cut, we've got the eye, which slips down on that. So it's a tight fit. I have to keep that pin oiled, and it's a heavy 2-inch pin. And when you pop it out of here and it slips through your hands and hits your foot, you say, Jesus Christ. All right. So, and you guys are going to be riding up on that camera mount right there, and you'll get to see how it cuts. And that's it. Okay, so this is our Jesus pin, and it's got the little pin prick in it, and then I've got just a simple center finding indicator in the head of the mill, and it's centered, so we zero up everything, and that's it. It's indicated in, and we're ready to work. Alright, so this is the setup. So when I align my pots and they're freshly cut with the faces faced off, I have these lineup rings in here, and I set my pot down, and some of my chunks are a little smaller than others, so you need to make sure that everything's going to get cut out that you want. And I just kind of line them up, and that sets everything for the banjo. That'll set the center, and the center sets the outer. So once we have it set, we cut the center out, and then we move to the outer. Okay, so we have one of our banjo pots centered up on the rotary table, and now I'm just tightening down this outer bowl ring, which clamps it from the outside and lets us cut that center out. Now I just tighten this ring up, and I don't go apeshit crazy with this. I just get it snug. It's going to hold it down just fine. There's a lot of people there, they tighten shit down way too tight. These fasteners are pulling this down really hard. I haven't had one jump out on me yet. So just get them snug. And I want to show you guys real time. I don't like speeding shit up because you guys need to see, well, it's important to see the real speed of things. So what I'm going to be doing now, that's tight, it's not going anywhere. We're going to wheel this over underneath our cutting head. Now we're going to be climb milling this, so this cutter is going to be turning clockwise, and we're going to be rotating this table clockwise. So that cutter's scooping out the material. If we have the cutter going the other way to where it's pulling this material out, this is really figured wood, so it's going to want to bust out on us. So it's better if we cut with that blade pushing into the wood. So that's it. I'm going to fire up vacuum, and you guys are going to see this thing cut a banjo out. And our first cut's going to be pretty big. center cut out. I'm gonna just take my inner. It's a snug fit, and that's how we're gonna go. So now it's ready for the next step where we hold it from the center and cut the outside out. Alright, so we're done with the mill on all the center cutting. Now we've got five banjo pots with the center holes cut. Now, when we go past this, we put the bullseye fixture in. So I've got a fixture that press fits in this circle we just cut. And now this will bolt down to the table, and that centering pin will go right through here and center everything up. And then we'll cut the outside of this. That's what we're going to be doing. Alright, here we go. We're cutting the outer profile. Done. All right, so we got all 5 pots inside and outside milled. The only thing I'm going to do with the rest of this video is I have to mill in that lower profile for our hook nuts right there. The rest of it, save it for another video. We have to do our tension hoop slot and our tone ring slot and our hook holes. And I only put 10 hook holes in my banjos. If I put any more, it looks kind of messy, and you really don't need that damn many to make it sound good. So I've got another batch of banjos. They've only got 6, and I just don't like that many hooks and brackets on a banjo. It looks gaudy, but that's me. So I'm just going to do one video quick of this cutting the lower profile out with a ball mill, and that's it. This is the first milling episode for a pot. so that wraps up today. Got 5 pots milled out with the a little bright with the all the features in it roughed out. They still need final shaping and all the holes for the resonator and hooks put in them, and they still need to be looked at and see where I'm going to put the neck on them and the tailpiece. But it's a lot of, filled up a whole trash can with just 5 pots, so it's a lot of shavings.